Well, bore da pawb, good morning everybody, and can I welcome you all to this virtual meeting of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. This meeting is being recorded, and as it's a virtual meeting, if you wish to speak, can I ask members please to raise their virtual hands, and if you're not actually speaking, if you could remain on mute the rest of the time. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. So the first item on the agenda is apologies. Can I ask, Lisa, have we received any apologies?
We have, Chair. We've apologies from Nigel Smith, Councillor Chris Hughes, Councillor Alan Hughes, Councillor Beverley Parry-Jones. A possible apology from Councillor Coverley. He's not sure if he's going to make it here on time. And Councillor Rhonda Roberts and Councillor Paul Rogers have both given notice that they're going to be late.
Thank you.
Councillor Priestley as well, Chair.
Thank you. And also the Deputy Chair, Councillor Paul Cunningham, if he's not here, if we can add him as well. Thank you.
Okay,
so the second item on the agenda. So, Councillor Brian Apsley, you've got your virtual hand up. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to apologise in advance if I leave the meeting halfway through or early or whatever. I'm still under a treatment and not sure where I am at times, so I might leave in a hurry. So apologise in advance. Yeah.
That's fine. We fully understand. Thank you, Brian. So going on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from anyone, please?
Chair, I think Councillor Trigg was going to declare an interest.
Councillor Robert Triggs.
Hi, yes. Hi, everybody. I'd like to declare an interest for part 2, item 16. I'm an out of trade member of the Fire Brigade Union, so I'll be leaving the meeting before that part takes part. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other declarations of interest? No? Okay, so item 3, notice of urgent matters. I haven't received any notice of any urgent matters, so there isn't anything under item 3. So we go on to item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of June. We'll go through those in terms of accuracy to begin with. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. There is one correction on page 5 if you look at paragraph 7.42, where it says delegate approval of the final audited 2021-22 statement of accounts to the executive panel at its meeting on the 19th of September. That meeting didn't actually take place following the death of the monarch, so that didn't actually happen. So that is a correction. And then page 6. Are you all happy to accept the accuracy of the minutes in that case? If you just indicate. Yes, that's fine. And then matters arising, if we go back to page 1, in here on page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, under 6.1 under wildfires, where we had a presentation from ACFO Stuart Millington, and referred to the resources required to deal with such incidents. I think that we may have an update, Stuart, on resources available. Is that right?
So, Chair, while we're sort of following the incidents that took place during the early part of the year, there was a full debrief that followed by a wildfire review. And that wildfire review examined a variety of areas, and some recommendations have come out of that review, which we're working through now as a management team and working through potentially into future financial planning cycles, which I'm sure Helen will take you through later on this morning. But ultimately, yes, there's some areas in relation to equipment and kit that we're trying to work through now. But yeah, nothing in terms of greater detail I can provide to you at this point, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that update. Page 7, 6, 7, 8. I don't think there's any other matters arising. I think actually we are supposed to formally approve the minutes. Can I have somebody to propose that we actually accept those minutes? Councillor Mark Young and Councillor Dale Sylvester. That's fine. Will you show that we've formally approved the minutes? That's great. Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is the Chair's report. And you'll see that I have done a written report for this meeting. I think I'd like to highlight the fact that one of the things that I've been doing with the Deputy Chair, which perhaps is sort of a quite new, quite different, is that we have been going around visiting some stations and some departments just to sort of meet staff, sort of make that connection and learn more about sort of the operations and the role within the service. And that's been very positively received and had very good feedback in relation to that. There is one correction. It does say in the report that we've visited Deeside Fire Station, but we actually had to postpone that due to illness, so that will be happening shortly. So I don't know if members have got any comments or questions in relation to the report. Councillor Dale Sylvester?
Hi, yeah, it was just to say that I personally visited Deeside Fire Station on a couple of occasions, met the blue crew, met the green crew, really good operations there, good stations in good order, and I've managed to get one of their offices to use for a surgery for a counselling role as well. So I've got a good working relationship with Deeside at the moment. So I just want to give them credit, really, that's all.
That's excellent, thank you for that. Anybody else with any comments or questions? Okay, there is one item that isn't included in my report, and that's a very sad item, and that relates to a funeral that I attended last Wednesday, and the funeral was of Michelle Corbett-Jones, who was a serving member of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service, and she died suddenly on the 22nd of September. And I know that she was held in very high regard by her colleagues, and it was very poignant to attend the funeral service and to see all her colleagues there attending and paying tribute to her. And in memory of Michelle, can I just ask that we all now have a moment's silence in memory of her. Thank you. Diolch. Thank you, everyone. Diolch pawb. The report for myself is just for noting. Can I have somebody propose that we note the report, please? Councillor John Brynmore, diolch. Councillor Austin Roberts, diolch yn fawr. If you just show that you agree, that's fine. Thank you. So going on to item number 7, the financial outturn for 2022-23, and it's ACFO Helen MacArthur who's going to present that report. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair, and Borodar Pawb. Today there are four financial papers on the agenda, and they actually cover 3 financial years. That's a real challenge for us. So if I keep repeating the financial year, it's more to reaffirm with myself that I'm in the correct one. This is the first one, and it relates to the current financial year, that of 2022-23. Its purpose is to provide you with an update and also provide you also with the full year forecast. I think any forward-looking financial report at this time will need to be taken with a high degree of caution, given these very uncertain economic and financial times. The budget for this financial year was set in December 2021, and the net expenditure approved was 39.41 million. This is the amount that we have levied upon local councils of North Wales. And at that time, it was noted that there are a number of factors that may impact on this financial year. These included ongoing COVID uncertainties, and the fact that the pay awards for 2023 had not been finalised when we set the budget. The COVID uncertainties are multifactorial. The impact that we experienced of lockdowns, high staff sickness, inability to recruit to vacancies simply because we couldn't hold the interviews, or indeed because we can't attract the right candidates, the need to defer some projects such as building renovations, some supply chain difficulties, and also those inflationary pressures that were beginning to become prevalent. I think it's fair to say that normal rules no longer seem to apply. And at the end of 2021-22, when we finalised that financial year, we carried forward a number of deferred items of expenditure, and we placed those into earmarked reserves. This recognised that that expenditure was necessary, but had not been progressed as planned. The COVID uncertainties have been exacerbated this year by the war in Ukraine, the global financial challenges, including hikes in interest rates, ongoing supply chain difficulties, and inflationary pressures, and they're coming together to make this year extremely challenging. Indeed, a paper on one of our key non-pay financial risks, namely the energy costs, is on the agenda today. So consequently, we've had to review our expenditure levels to ensure that we carefully manage our financial position. The pay negotiations for 2022-23 have not yet concluded, and therefore it's very difficult to be sure on our outturn estimates. The figures today are predicated on settlements in line with the current pay offers, but as you'll be aware, they haven't yet been accepted. These in themselves will create a recurring cost pressure, and as agreed when the budget was set, it's anticipated that the pressures for 2022-23 will be managed internally via reserves rather than through a supplementary levy against your local councils. However, they do create a cost pressure for future years as they will increase the base budget. With this in mind, the overall position is that expenditure will increase, but the increase for this year will be met through earmarked reserves and also those general reserves. In part, it was planned, and due to the number of matters that were deferred, both in 2020-21 and also 21-22, mainly due to COVID. However, as mentioned, the pressures are more than simply timing issues, and we are having to manage pay inflation, general inflation, exceptional inflation, such as energy costs, and higher than anticipated interest rates. I would like to draw your attention to the table in the report contained within paragraph 14. That provides an overview of our spend by type and the projected year-end position. Pay costs are expected to exceed our budget by almost £1.4 million, and this includes pay awards and also the costs associated with providing holiday pay on overtime. This is necessary following a national legal challenge, not unique to the fire sector. It's been planned for, but has created a one-year cost, which will be met from our reserves. Premises costs include inflationary pressures in building materials, contractor rates, energy costs, and also catch up on volume from previous years. The supply expenditure on supplies and services includes not only a general inflationary cost, but also additional costs to be met from reserves around such things as the training review, the need to address contamination issues, and software to support our fire safety work. A growing area of concern for us at the moment relates to our capital finance charges, which include the cost of borrowing. And as you will appreciate, the significant increase in interest rates in recent weeks is something that we're having to monitor very, very carefully. For the remainder of the financial year, we'll continue to carefully manage and monitor costs. And if we do deviate from these current forecasts, then that you will be provided with an update report at the next Fire Authority. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Helen. It strikes me that it's due to the fact that we've been prudent in building up our reserves that we've been able to meet some of the challenges for this year and the challenges for next year. And bring in our Treasurer, David Edwards. Diolch, David.
Ie, diolch Cadeirydd. A diolch i Helen am y cyflwyniad. Dim ond gair i egluro lle mae'r gwahaniaeth mwyaf di yn y costa staff wrth gwrs. Ac yn ôl yn Rhagfyr 2021, mi oedd yr amcangyfrif o 2% fel darpariaeth ar gyfer yr dyfarniad tal eleni yn eitha resymol. Bydd rhain o'ch chi'n cofio bod y byd wedi newid bron yn mis Ionawr a Chwefror, ar y pryd hynny, mi oedden ni fel cynghorau yn y gogledd ma'n cael rhyw 2 fis ychwanegol i feddwl am be oedd yn cyllideb ni ar gyfer tal. A dwi'n gwybod nes i godi be oedd darpariaeth yng Ngwynedd i fyny 4% erbyn Chwefror, oherwydd bod y rhyfel yn yr Ukraine, ac mi oedd na, a hyd yn oed ar y pryd hynny, mi oedd na arwyddion bod yr economi ddim am fod mor sefydlog a mae wedi bod dros y blynyddoedd dwytha. Wedyn, dwi'n yn feirniadol o gwbl am yr amcangyfrif 2% neithwyd nôl yn Rhagfyr dwytha, ond mae y byd wedi newid a mae'r disgwyliad bellach, wel mae'r cynnig bellach, dwi'n credu byddwn ni'n trafod wedyn o gwmpas 5% o ran chwyddiant tal, ac mae'n bosib bydd y setliad hyd yn oed yn uwch na hynny ymhen i'r hwyr. Wedyn, mae yna wahaniaeth mawr yn fanna, fel fyddwn ni'n deud sawl tro yn y cyfarfod mae dros 70% o'r costa a'r gyfloga, wedyn does na ddim opsiwn rhag wynebu y cost yna, mae'n hollol anochel, ac da ni'n ffodus, ond dim ffodus chwaith, da chi wedi cynllunio yn ddoeth, yn hanesyddol, i gael reserfa wrth gefn yn unio i'r pwrpas yma. Be sy'n anffodus ydy, unwaith da ni'n iwsio'r reserfa yna, maen nhw'n un bwlet ydy o, unwaith da ni'n tanio'r gwn, mae di mynd. Wedyn, mae yn rhoi cyd-destun pan da ni'n trafod cyllideb 2023 wedyn, bydd rhaid i ni fod yn darbodus wrth i ni osod y cyllideb honno, achos fydd yr un lefel o reserfa ddim tu cefn o ni yn symud ymlaen gan fydda ni wedi iwsio rhywfaint o'n eleni. Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Diolch, David. Does anybody have any questions or comments for David or for Helen? I can't see any. In that case, we'll move on to the recommendations. The recommendations are contained at paragraph 4 of the report, and they read as follows. Members are asked to 1. Note the draft revenue and capital outturn projections for the 2022-23 financial year as detailed within the report. 2. Note the risks associated with inflation and supply chain issues. 3. Note the risks associated with the ongoing pay negotiations. And 4. Approve the use of earmarked and general fund reserves. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor John Brynmore. A seconder. Councillor Dale Sylvester, can you all show that you assent to that, please? Diolch yn fawr, thank you very much. So we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the energy contract renewal, and back to you again, please, Helen. Diolch, thank you.
Thank you. This is the second financial paper on the agenda today and is very topical. It's quite unusual for us to bring a contractual matter directly to the authority, but given the extreme market conditions in the energy sector, the financial value of the contract and the uncertainty, we considered that it was relevant and appropriate to do so. I'm sure that we're all familiar with the price increases that have been experienced across the energy sector over the last year. It's become more and more acute in recent months due to global supply issues and also the war in Ukraine. As an organisation, we've historically entered into a 4-year contract using a fixed term tariff, which is very similar to what you would do at a domestic level. Our contract date has been historically the 1st of October, and under this methodology, the tariff is set annually. That is, we're bound by the market conditions prevailing at the time that the tariff is set. For a number of years, we've been able to take part in a pan-North Wales approach, which provides economies of scale in the procurement arrangements and sharing of knowledge and good practice. More recently, Cyngor Gwynedd has developed a procurement framework which incorporates what's known as a dynamic purchasing approach. And under this approach, instead of using a fixed term tariff, gas and electricity are purchased at intervals over the lifetime of the contract. And what that enables is it enables organisations to take advantage of price fluctuations over the contract duration. The dynamic purchasing option also has a safety net, as it includes what's known as a price cap. What that means is if the energy price reaches that cap, all of your supply for that year is purchased. And effectively what that does is it reverts you to a fixed tariff for that period. As it was necessary to enter into new contracts, we've undertaken a public sector compliant tender exercise, and our contracts have been awarded. The electricity supplier is a company known as Drax. They're a UK-based company with the largest source of renewable energy. The gas supplier is a company called Total Energies. They're a global company, but also committed to lowering carbon emissions. Both of these are very relevant to us as we move towards carbon neutrality in 2030. In normal times, this will be a relatively straightforward process, although you will appreciate that renegotiating a contract during the most volatile period in history has been a significant challenge to us. The paper on the agenda today provides some context, and for example, gas prices have risen from 266 pence per therm in April through to a high of 827 pence per therm during August. Our contracts were signed ahead of the price increases at 525 pence per therm, but due to the increased volatility, the price cap has now been invoked, and that was done almost immediately. Without government intervention, this would have given rise to a cost pressure year on year of about £900,000. This has been limited to circa £200,000 for this financial year, following the introduction of the non-domestic price cap. Currently, the price cap is only extended until March 2023, and therefore this is a very live risk for us as we look forward into that budget setting for 2023-24. I'm sure that members will recognise that these risks are relevant at both a domestic and a non-domestic level, and also relevant to both public and private sectors. And we will continue to work with our energy consultants to ensure that our gas and electricity costs and our usage are managed as effectively and efficiently as possible. However, it remains a really difficult time and does represent a significant financial risk for us. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Thank you, Hannah. Before I invite members to raise any questions, I want to know, does David, as the Treasurer, want to come in and add any further comments? Diolch, David.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Na'n dweud lot ar hwn. Just i gadarnhau, mae'r adroddiad yn cyfeirio at Cyngor Gwynedd, ond dwi'n meddwl bod angen I mi na'r aelodau ddatgan diddordeb yn y mater oherwydd fframwaith sydd wedi sefydlu gen Cyngor Gwynedd ydy o, does na ddim transaction gyda Cyngor Gwynedd yn y mater, just mynediad i'r fframwaith. Ac ar yr digwyddiadau, unwaith eto, maen nhw'n anochel oherwydd yr sefyllfa byd eang, ac dwi'n argyhoeddedig bod Helen a swyddogion yn gwneud I gorau I gael y ddargan ora, ac yn ymddiried yn wrth y ffordd ymlaen.
Diolch, David. Any comments or questions from members? I can't see any hands being raised. In that case, we'll move on to the recommendations, which are contained at paragraph 6 of the report and read as follows. Members are asked to note the contractual arrangements for the purchase of gas and electricity, and 2, associated risk and cost implications from the 1st of October 2022. Can I have somebody to propose that we accept the recommendations, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Sorry, who was that? Sorry.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mark. And then I think Councillor Austin Roberts also put his hand up very quickly, along with Councillor Marion Bateman, but I think Austin just got it by a whisker. Diolch yn fawr. So if we go on to item number 9 on the agenda, the new training centre, and over to DCFO Stuart Forshaw, please. Thank you, Stuart.
Diolch, Chair, and bore da pawb, and good morning, everybody. This paper, or this report, presents members with an update on the work undertaken to date on the production of a detailed business case for the options of the new training and development centre in North Wales Fire and Rescue Service. This will be to meet our commitment to provide essential operational training to our staff to support service delivery and, importantly, maintain firefighter safety. Members will remember that during the Chief Fire Officer's first 100 days, she identified, amongst other things, training as a priority area. And it was at that meeting of the Fire Authority in September 2021 that the Chief Fire Officer's plans to undertake a full review on the future of delivery of operational training and development were approved. Following this approval, the service has undertaken a detailed review of its operational training facilities at both Rhyl and Dolgellau fire stations. But it's become apparent that they do not provide the facilities required to train firefighters operating in a modern day fire and rescue service. Therefore, the review identified the need to invest in training and development facilities to ensure operational preparedness and safety, both in terms of existing and future provision. In particular, the training review has highlighted the need for the service to provide practical and immersive training experiences to firefighters across a range of emergency incident scenarios, so they can continually refresh all of their core skills, including compartment fire behaviour training, which is currently conducted in a firehouse training facility approximately 47 years old in Dolgellau. Another reason identified why a new, realistic and immersive training centre is important is that during the past decade, the authority would have noted that a number of fires and other emergencies have significantly reduced. Although this is a success story for our prevention work that's taken place in our communities during this time, what it has done is resulted in the risk of firefighters having less exposure and therefore experiences to the hazards and complex situations they are likely to face when attending such incidents. The management of fire contaminants is also a new and emerging area of focus for the service, which needs to be included in a training and development centre design to reduce the risk that is present in the smoke and toxic flammable gases released during fires. And these may contribute to cancer and other health conditions in firefighters in the future. To mitigate all these hazards, operational training and development for our staff in realistic and immersive training environments, which includes adequate health and safety measures, need to be at the forefront of a new training and development centre design. Therefore, a project has already commenced to develop options with the participation of our staff. This will provide ideas for essential facilities required for training and development for at least the next 25 years in North Wales Fire and Rescue Service. The project team will also include the identification and purchase of land to build the training development centre within North Wales, and that should be accessible within an hour's travel for the majority of our staff located at fire stations across the service. Therefore, in order to develop a detailed business case which will allow the authority to consider if building a new training and development centre at a new site in North Wales is a valid option, an initial budget is required to be allocated to the project so the next stage of the project can be undertaken. The next stages will include the appointment of consultants required for the project, including a building consultant, architect, quantity surveyor, low carbon and sustainability services engineer, the identification of suitable land and agreements of an exclusivity agreement with the landowner, undertake baseline surveys such as ground investigation, contamination, topographical and ecological surveys, the development of mitigation strategies for contamination and ecological issues such as newt or badger presence, and potential early prevention work for any Japanese knotweed remediation if present. Development of a design brief in conjunction with the end users, so our staff, architects and energy and sustainability experts, and also the development of a low carbon strategy for the whole site to ensure it's fully budgeted for and incorporated within the scheme from inception. We'd also look to obtain early project BREEAM credentials. These are mandatory credentials and BREEAM assessments of excellence and higher. And also discuss the project with local planning authority prior to developing and submitting an outline planning application. We'd also want to liaise with statutory bodies and services suppliers to ensure the proposal meets modern day regulations and develop strategies and costs to ensure that the site has adequate power and water supplies. We'd also need to develop strategies and costs to ensure that sufficient sustainable drainage capacity is available. And all this will be in the production of a cost estimate for the project covering both capital investment and longer term revenue consequences. So, Chair, it is therefore recommended that members note the content of the report and authorise the release of expenditure of up to a maximum of £250,000 from reserves to develop the next stage of a detailed business case for the options which I've described for the new training development centre in North Wales Fire and Rescue Service. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Going back to my report to the members, you'll have noted that I have actually visited the training centre, the existing training centre at Dolgellau, which is the only one that provides hot fire training. And it struck me immediately when you go into the entrance, and there on the wall is the plaque, opened in 1976. Sadly, it's past its sell-by date. And if you were building a new training centre now, you certainly wouldn't build it in Dolgellau. So there is a need for us to consider a new training centre, in my view, moving forward. Can I also ask, Stuart, we've just had a presentation from Dan Stevens, the Chief Fire and Rescue Advisor for the Welsh Government, and he referenced to his thematic reviews that he's been carrying out, and there is one that he's just completed in relation to training, which members won't have seen yet because it's only just been published. But obviously there's a number of recommendations contained within that report. I don't want to go into the details of those recommendations, but would a new training facility that we're looking at help to meet those recommendations, as well as what we've already identified from our own sort of research?
Yes, Joseph, thank you. So yeah, the Fire Advisor talks about a hub and spoke approach to operational training across the 3 services in Wales. And what that means is that we'd have a central training centre, which this project is looking to identify and obviously design. And then within hubs across the service, you'd be able to carry out some training also, which we currently do across many of our fire stations in the service. What we're probably missing at the moment is the hub. And I think that this would go some way to satisfy that need. He also talks about those 8 core competency areas, and part of the training review is looking to kind of identify how we can deliver those 8 core competencies in the future. And again, by being able to train in realistic and immersive training environments, those 8 competency areas will be satisfied with the operational training that we have planned commencing from April next year anyhow. But again, it's about enhancing that experience. And when I touched on, firefighters getting less exposure to the hazards because they're attending less incidents, training is the only way that you can replace that reduction in fire calls. So yes, it would.
Excellent, thank you, Stuart. Do members have any questions or comments, please? Councillor Rob Triggs.
Yeah, just I'm a bit concerned with the dates given. 47 years ago for the smokehouse. That's been built since I was in the fire service and I joined in '87. So I think maybe a plaque is for the station and the smokehouse has been built after that. I'm not that it's relevant, we still need something better, but it just if you're doing a review of things, it might be worth just checking those dates. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Mark Young.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Stuart. So if you have a new facility, is there an opportunity to share this facility with other emergency services, or wouldn't that be relevant, or is it something we are looking at? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Young. Yeah, well, I think interoperability with other agencies is always something that we look to to adopt, following the Joint Emergency Services interoperability principles, the JESSA principles, is something we do every day. So the opportunity to train with other agencies will be increased, I would have thought, at this site, making it a JESSA Centre of Excellence, if you like, across Wales. And yeah, conversations will take place as part of the initial design around whether other agencies want to come in. I've already had conversations with the Temporary Chief Constable of North Wales Police around, our vision for the future, and it's something that he was very interested in. So yes, the same conversations will take place with ambulance.
Okay, thanks for that, Chair, and thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Mark. Cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Mae'n dweud yn yr adroddiad o fewn awr i'r rhan fwyaf o lefydd. Dwi yn poeni wrth gwrs fel un sydd bella bosib efo ward bella o unrhyw le yn y canol, sef Gorsaf Dan Harlach, pa mor bell bydd y lle o Gorsaf Dan Harlach. Mae gynhawd dweud awr o rhan fwyaf o lefydd, ond fe all fod yn bell iawn o rei llefydd. Fyswn ni yn licio sicrwydd bod o'n cymryd i ystyriad pa mor bell ydy rei o'r llefydd yma. Diolch.
Stuart, I don't know if you want to come back or just to note that comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That comment is noted and it is part of the work that we're doing to identify where the hub location will be to make it as accessible as possible for all.
Thank you. David, ydych chi eisiau dod I fewn? Diolch.
Yn fyr iawn, Cadeirydd. Mae'r angen yn amlwg dydy, a be mae'r adroddiad yn gofyn I chi wneud ydy rhoi seil bendith I ariannu'r asesiad o ffordd ymlaen ar hwn. O'n i'n jyst eisiau cefnogi be oedd yr cynghorydd o'r blaen yn deud efo y posibilrwydd o rannu'r sefydliad yn dyfodol ac os fysa yna bosib cael incwm gen wasanaethau tân eraill dros ffinia yn ogystal ag asiantaethau o fewn Gogledd Cymru. Dwi'n meddwl bod hynny'n rhywbeth I ffactro fewn i'r ystyriaethau, achos efo'r sefyllfa cost of living a bob dim arall rwan, bydd rhaid I ni drio edrych ar beth sy'n gost effeithiol yn ogystal a beth sy'n orall.
Diolch, Dafydd. I can't see any other hands being raised, so Stuart has already read out the recommendations which are contained at paragraph 6 of the report. Can I have a proposer for those recommendations, please? Councillor John Brynmore, Eilydd, seconder. Councillor Mark Young, diolch yn fawr, thank you. So, when you all indicate that you agree, Champion, diolch yn fawr. So going on to item 10 on the agenda, budget setting 2023-24. Back to you, Helen, please. Diolch.
Thank you, Chair. On this occasion, I'm going to defer to the Treasurer, David, who's going to lead on this item.
Diolch, Helen. Cadeirydd, gosod y gyllideb ar gyfer 23-24, da ni wedi cyfeirio rhywfaint at hyn yn barod bore yma, ond mae'r broses o'r gyllideb yn mynd rhagddo. Da ni'n dod â chi hwn gael bron chi bore yma I chi gael gwybod am y broses, y rhagdybiaethau cynllunio ariannol a'r amserlen ar gyfer gosod gyllideb refeniw'r awdurdod ar gyfer 23-24. Mae rhaid i'r awdurdod osod y gyllideb ar yr unfed ar 15 o Ionawr 23. Hwna di'r dyddiad pella fedrwn ni fynd cyn osod o, achos mae'r lefi wedyn yn cael ei osod ar gyllideba'r 6 awdurdod cyfansoddol, a fydden nhw eisiau ffactro hwnnw fewn i'w ystyriaethau gyllideb eu hunan. Bore yma fydden ni'n argymell I chi nodi'r rhagdybiaethau cynllunio fyddai'n rhedeg drwyddyn nhw rwan, a nodi hefyd cynnig I ddarparu amcangyfrifon i'r panel gweithredol ar y 12fed o Rhagfyr, lle fydden ni'n dod â ffigurau ger bron chi adeg hynny I chi gael golwg arnyn nhw cyn mynd i'r awdurdod am seil bendith terfynol. bob blwyddyn rhaid i'r awdurdod osod cyllideb sy'n dangos sut mae gwariant yn cael ei ariannu. Fel da ni'n siarad rwan, mae yna ganghellor newydd gobeithio yn San Steffan yn gwneud hynny yn genedlaethol. Nath yr un blaenorol yn ei mini-budget ddim yn dangos sut oedd gwariant yn cael ei ariannu. Ond da ni'n eisiau mynd i'r tir yna, dwi'n eisiau bod allan o swydd o fewn chydig fisoedd. Wedyn, mae rhaid i ni fod yn ariannu beth da ni am wario, a mae'r gofynion gwario'n cael ei ariannu gen yr ardal o'i nôl at hynny. Ond pa gosta, pa risgiau sy'n yna? Mae yna ofynion ar y gwasanaeth, da ni'n newid lywed am rei ohonyn nhw o ran yr adolygiad, a mae yna weledigaeth strategol ar gyfer y dyfodol. Y mis Medi 21, yr Prif Swyddog Tân wneud i asesiad sefyllfaol, a cadarnhau rhai heriau yn wynebu'r ymdrydod, argeuledd criwiau tân ar alwad, datblygu sgiliau y diffodwyr tân, a capacity corfforaethol yn 3 peth amlwg oedd angen sylw ag adnoddau i'w gyflawni. Mae'r adolygiad mewnol yn dilyn hynny yn cynnwys un adolygiad o ofal tân, y system RDS a hyfforddiant. Mae'r adolygiadau hynny'n parhau. Mae yna waith pellach hefyd mewn meysydd eraill sydd wedi codi yn y cyfamser. Tana sy'n mynd y wyllt yn amlwg, da chi wedi clywed am heini yn yn cyfarfodydd diweddar ni, ac mae'r angen i dadhalogi decontamination yn un arall sydd yn ddatblygiad diweddar, a mae cost ynghlwm â hynny yn anochel os da ni am gadw'n diffodwyr yn saff wrth symud ymlaen. Mae'r awdurdod yn wynebu ansicrwydd sy'n gyffredin i bob corff yn y sector gyhoeddus, a mae hynny oherwydd y sefyllfa economaidd ansicr y wlad mae hynny ar hyn o bryd. Mae effaith chwiriant yn ffeithio yn costa tal ni ac yn effeithio cost cyflenwadau fel da ni wedi clywed am yr adroddiad am hynny. Mi fydd y gwaith o gynllunio'r gyllideb yn canolbwyntio ar y ffactorau heini. A fel trafodwyd yn y gweithdy yn Rhyl ar y 6 o Hydref, ac o'n i'n falch iawn yn gael y plesar o gwrdd â nifer o'ch i wyneb yn wyneb yna. Mae'n helpu i gwrdd â bobl wyneb yn wyneb i adeiladu'r berthynas sydd gennym ni ar yr peiriant yma. Ond, ia, yn fuan ar ôl y gweithdy, lle wnaethon ni egluro'r sefyllfa i chi fel aelodau, mae'r Prif Swyddog Tân a Helen McCarthy a Dina wedi bod yn gysylltu hefo'r prif weithredwyr a'r trysoryddion yn y 6 awdurdod cyfansoddol, a wedi rhoi y sefyllfa'r awdurdod tân erbyn 23-24 ar ei radar nhw, fel bod o ddim yn dod yn sioc iddyn nhw os da ni'n gweld bod y costa mynd i fyny i'r dyfodol. Ond mae'r costa gweithwyr fel o'n i'n cyfeirio dan adolygiad o gyllideb eleni, mae costa gweithwyr yn fwy na 72% o'n gwariant ni. Cyn y rhyfel yn Ukraine, oeddwn ni wedi rhagdybio'r 2% fel dyfarniad cyflog eleni. Wel, efo cynnig cyfredol o 5% bellach, mae'r risg wedi mynd yn wirionedd bod ni'n gwynebu costa sylweddol uwch yn y flwyddyn yma. Mae rhaid ni fyw efo hynny fel sylfaen wrth symud ymlaen yn y flwyddyn nesaf hefyd ar gyfer 23-24. A pwy sy'n licio darogan be fydd lefel chwyddiant erbyn y Gwanwyn. Mae bob sôn, mae'r doethion allan yn awgrymu bod na peak inflation am fod a bod pethau'n normaleiddio, ond swn i'n licio rhoi betion mortgage ar hynny. Beth bynnag, aia chi i'r atodiad ac yn fanno atodiad 1 ar tudalen 30, fe welwch chi'r ffactorau fel gathen nhw i gosod allan yn Rhyl, wedyn dwi'n am ailadrodd gormod ar hyn i reina chi sy'n rand yn oedwaith. Ond costa gweithwyr di'r peth mwyaf. Mae rhaid i ni mynd i afal ar risgiau sydd wedi cael ei nodi allan yn asesiad y Prif Swyddog Tân. Mae rhaid ni hefyd ddygymod efo'r mater chwyddiant yma. Mae hyn yn anochel, mae rhaid I ni ddiwallu'r anghenion a talu beth sy'n gytundeb tal cenedlaethol. Hefyd ar yr ochr yna, da ni'n gwybod os ydy'r Llywodraeth Cymru am ariannu'r cynnydd yn cyfraniadau pensiwn. Maen nhw wedi wneud amlenni, ond sa ddim garanti am flwyddyn nesaf. Ac wrth gwrs ydy canlyniad issue pensiwn MacLeod dal ddim yn hollol eglur. Mae hwnnw'n dal gyda nhw yn genedlaethol I sortio. Trychineb Grenfell hefyd yn gosod pwysau ychwanegol ar y gwasanaeth. A heblaw cyfloga, mae'r gofynion ar y gyllideb yn gweithredu oherwydd y cadwyn cyflenwi a cost nwy a thrydan a diesel wrth gwrs yn sylweddol uwch nag oedd o. Cyllido cyfalaf, mae hwnna'n rhywbeth sydd wedi taro ni'n gymharol ddiweddar efo'r codiadau yng nghyfraddau llog genedlaethol a mae'r Public Works Launch Board lle mae'r awdurdod yn cael mynd am fenthygiaeth yr rhad, ond mae dal yn rhatach na'r farchnad agorad, ond mae'r PWLB wedi cynyddu y cyfraddau llog i'r awdurdod fenthyca, so mae cost fenthyca I ni i'r dyfodol am fod yn uwch. So mae yna gryn bwysau ar gyllideb 23-24. Di hynny ddim yn newyddion I chi wrth gwrs. Hyd yn oed I reino chi ar ei fethu'r gweithlu ar y 7th Hydref, mi fyddwch chi wedi clywed sôn am y sefyllfa ariannol cyngor chi a'r pwysau tebyg sy'n fanno. Roedd ffigurau fel 20 miliwn o ddiffyg mewn un awdurdod lleol, yn bennawd yn y newyddion Cymraeg wrth dwytha. Rhain o'ch chi wedi gweld hynny'n di siwr. Y peth anffodus ydy, bydd pwysau ar gyllideb yr awdurdod tân yn cynyddu'r arddull fe gynnon ni ar awdurdodau lleol. A hynny'n I dro yn gwaithygu'r her ariannol i'ch cyngor chi. A fel cynrychiolwyr eich cyngor chi yma ar tân, mi fydd rhywun yn dal chi yn atebol am hynny ar ryw bwynt yn y cylch gyllidebu yma. Boed hynny yn drysorydd yr awdurdod, neu cabinet, neu aelodau craffu, neu traethdalwyr pan maen nhw'n gweld y bil yn cynyddu. A fe rhaid chi fod yn barod I fod yn atebol pam fod hynny. Ond na I atgoffa chi beth oedd Gareth yn y cyfarfod yn Rhyl, da ni'n bresennol yma yn y cyfarfod yma fel aelodau'r awdurdod tân, a'r prif ddyletswydd chi a fi di sicrhau fi gen y gwasanaeth tân adnoddau digonol I gyflawni I cyfrifoldebau nhw'n briodol. So fel mae'n sefyll rwan, mi all hynny olygu cynnydd sylweddol yn y gyllideb, o bosib hyd at 15% 15% o gynnydd. A mae hynny'n gynnydd anarferol o uchel fydd yn golygu cynnydd yn yr arddull cymesur yn anochel oherwydd y 2 flynedd o chwyddiant tail y prisiau yma. Mae'r double whammy ar gyflogau lenni a'r tebygolrwydd o godiad tebyg yn y flwyddyn olynol yn hit go sylweddol a mae angen cryfhau yr cyfer hefyd. Felly, rhwng rwan a chyflwyno'r cynigion terfynol, bydd y gyllideb, fel o'n i'n dweud, yn dod ger bron chi eto yn rhagfyr a Ionawr am gymeradwyaeth. Dwi'n siŵr byddwch chi eisiau cefnogi ymdrechion ni fel swyddogion I sicrhau bod bob elfen o'r cynnydd yma yn y gyllideb yn hanfodol a bod ni'n craffu'n hunan I sicrhau bod os fyddwn ni'n dod â hynny ger bron, does yna elfen ohono fedra ni osgoi codi fel arddull fydd yn taro yr biliau traeth cyngor yn y pen draw. Diolch, David.
Diolch, David. I mean, in terms of the content of your report, if you had an emoji, it wouldn't be a smiling one. And you mentioned a double whammy. My fear is that we're going to get a triple whammy because it seems that the new Chancellor is talking about public spending cuts as well in terms of trying to balance the books. So I fear that there's more dark clouds on the horizon, but there we go. Do we have any questions or comments for David from members, please? Diolch. Gwynfor a wedyn Mark Young a wedyn and then Brian Apsley. Gwynfor gynta, diolch.
Ie, diolch yn fawr iawn am yr adroddiad yna. Mae'r adroddiad fel oedd Dafydd yn dweud yn rhywbeth ddigon tebyg i beth da ni gyd wedi gael yn awdurdodau lleol yn hunan wrth gwrs, a mae'r adroddiad yn ddigon i sobri rwy'n go iawn felly. Ond just sylw hefyd o na Dafydd sylw am yr cyfarfod ar y 6 o Hydref. O'n i'n methu bod yn hwnnw, a'r rheswm o'n i'n methu bod bod wedi cael ei drefnu yr un diwrnod a cyfarfod llawn o Gyngor Gwynedd. A dwi'n meddwl ddylsa'n neud siŵr bod ni'n ysgoi, neud yn saff bod ni'n ysgoi cael cyfarfodydd yr un diwrnod ac cyfarfodydd eraill yr awdurdodau lleol, yn enwedig cyfarfod o'r Cyngor llawn. Ond yn mynd yn ôl at y pwynt yma, felly mae'n amlwg bod hyn yn mynd i daro adra efo etholwyr bob un ohono ni, pan maen nhw'n gweld faint o godiad sydd yn cael ei ragweld. Felly mae angen gwneud yn siŵr bod pawb yn gwybod beth yw'r rhesymau am hyn. Ac felly mae eisiau gwasanaeth tân bod efo'u cysylltiadau cyhoeddus fod yn hollol eglur na dim bai gorwariant, na dim byd gan yr awdurdod tân yw hyn, ond oherwydd ymatab i beth sy'n pen draw polisi a llywodraeth ganolog yn San Steffan. Ac efo chydig eiriau fel yna na i adael i. Diolch.
Diolch, Gwynfor, cytuno. Mark, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David, for that on a Monday. And yes, challenging times, and I think the previous speaker, and I think we have to be absolutely clear what people are getting for the money. So it's not just about why we're increasing, it's what they are going to get for the money. So that's something we need to do. And just one question, hope you don't mind, David, is you talk about 15% for maybe 2 years. Would 10% for 3 years, that sort of approach, be worth thinking about, or have you thought about that? And that's just my question. I hope you don't mind that, just so we're fully clear on the approach of yourselves and officers. Thank you.
Ie, diolch. Cwestiwn teg iawn, ac mae'r cynnydd 15% yna'n sylweddol. Pan mae rwy'n yn rhaid o'n cyd-destun yr Cyngor a Sir, wrth gwrs, dydy'r gyllideb yr awdurdod tân ddim gymaint o hynny, ond mae'n dod mewn blwyddyn sy'n anodd iawn dydy. Dwi'n meddwl, sa'n ni'n trio smwddio hwn dros gyfnod o flynyddoedd, so rhaid i ni fod yn defnyddio reserfa i'r perwyl hynny. Ond fel oedden ni'n egluro'n gynharach, pryd oedden ni'n sôn am gyllideb 22-23, mi fyddwn ni'n iwsio talp sylweddol iawn o'r reserfa eleni, a byswn ni'n eisiau bita mwy fewn i hynny'n yn cylluniau blwyddyn nesaf. Mae'r be maen nhw'n galw'n Black Swan events mae'n dod rownd yn amlach nag oedden nhw, ac bydden ni eisiau'r reserfa ar lefel ddim yn anferthol, ond bydden ni eisiau rhywbeth i cefn ni'n sy'n mynd ymlaen wedyn di'r hyblygrwydd ddim yna, ddeud y gwir, i ni fod yn smwddio hwn. Mae rhaid i ni wynebu fo yn y flwyddyn gyntaf, dwi'n credu.
Diolch. Councillor Brian Apsley.
Okay, can I come back just quickly on that, Chair?
Yeah, certainly, go on, Mark.
Yeah, no, that approach makes sense, and you've got to cut your cloth in the end. So I guess if we are using reserves, and we clearly are, we need to make sure we're sharing that as part of the comms on this. Thank you, Jock and Bob.
Thank you, Mark. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. There's a mention on page 30 about not sure whether the Welsh Government will support the increase in employer contributions. And we've got to make a decision by the middle of January. And then there's a mention on page 31 about the staff scheme would be, the valuation would be April 2023, and the firefighters April 2024. If in the worst circumstances we didn't get the support of the 1.1 million, would it be that we'd have to go to the reserves again to support? Well, that would be a deficit of 1.1 or pressure of 1.1 million. Thank you.
David?
Mae'n anodd dadla fel be mae cynghorydd Blaen Apsi wedi gosod allan mewn gywir, ddweud gwir, ac dydy'r 1.1 na ddim wedi ffactro fewn ar hyn o bryd. Mae wedi cael ei adnabod fel risg wrth symud ymlaen. Ond gan obeithio na rhwng rwan a Rhagfyr, mi fydd Llywodraeth Cymru wedi rhoi eglurder i ni ar hynny. Os ddim erbyn hynny, bydd rhaid yn wneud ar ddiwedd Rhagfyr cyn i ni ddod i'r awdurdod yn Ionawr. Mi wnawn ni gymryd ystyriaeth o hynny wrth symud ymlaen.
Diolch, Gavin. Thank you, Brian, for that very relevant question. And I think the difficulty is that Welsh Government, I think, want to continue to assist us with that funding, but obviously they're waiting to hear how much money they're going to get from the Westminster Government, and who knows what's going to come from Number 10 and over the next few weeks, next few months. So things are up in the air at the moment. It's really difficult. Are there any other questions or comments, please? No. In that case, David has already mentioned what the recommendations are, which are contained in paragraph 3 of the report. They are recommendations for noting. Could I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Mark, for seconding. Will you all indicate that you agree with the recommendations? Diolch yn fawr. So the next item is item 11, which is the annual government statement, and it's ACO Sian Morris who's going to present this. The draft of this statement has been before the members, but this is now the amended version. Diolch, Sian.
Diolch yn fawr, diolch Cadeirydd a bore da. Pwrpas yr adroddiad yma ydy i gyflwyno y drafft diwygiedig o'r datganiad llywodraethu blynyddol. Gofiwch chi i ddaeth y drafft cyntaf gyda'r bron chi ym mis Mehefin, ond ers hynny, da ni wedi derbyn sylwadau gan yr archwilydd allanol, a mi oedd heina yn sylwadau manwl ac defnyddiol iawn, o'n i'n ddiolchgar amdanyn nhw. A dyn ni wedi cynnwys y sylwadau yna yn yr ail ddrafft sydd ger eich bron chi bore yma, i chi roi sel bendith arno fo. Heb i fynd i fanylu'n ormodol, mae'r cefndir i'r datganiad blynyddol wedi osod allan yn yr adroddiad ym mharagraffa 6 i 9, ac yn y bôn, felly mae o fel sydd i sgwennu yn paragraff 9, pwrpas y datganiad llywodraethu blynyddol ydy nodi'r trefniadau yr awdurdod i sicrhau bod busnes yn cael ei gynnal yn gyfreithiol, fel sy'ch chi'n disgwyl, bod arian cyhoeddus yn cael ei ddiogelu a bod cyfri priodol amdano, a bod adnoddau'n cael ei defnyddio yn gyfrifol. Felly dyna'r bwriad tu ôl i'r datganiad yma. Heb fynd i fanylu'n ormodol, mae'r newidiadau sydd wedi cael ei gwneud yn cael ei rhestru ym mharagraff 12. Dwi'n ddigon hapus i fynd drwyddyn nhw fesul un, ond dwi'n meddwl bod nhw'n hunan esboniadwy. Mae'n eitha clir beth sydd wedi newid. Felly, yr unig beth i ychwanegu ydy bod yr archwilydd allanol wedi cadarnhau rwan i fod o'n fodlon efo'r datganiad diwygiedig. Mae'r cadarnhad yna yn rhan o'r adroddiad ar y datganiad o gyfrifon sydd yn eitem 13 ar yr agenda bore yma. Felly mae nhw wedi cadarnhau bod yn fodlon efo fel mae o. Felly yr argymhelliad ydy i nodi y newidiadau sydd wedi cael ei gwneud ac i gymeradwyo y datganiad llywodraethu blynyddol diwygiedig, felly ar gyfer 21-22. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Sian, and we do have present this morning Mike Whiteley from the Wales Audit Office. Welcome, Mike. I don't know if you have any comment you want to make, Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Nothing really to add on that, Chair. As Sian has outlined, she shared the draft with us, and between ourselves in kind of who deal with the financial audit, looking at the accounts, which is the next item on the agenda, we also shared it with our performance colleagues at EROS, who you see coming to these meetings. Also kind of added his input into that review. We passed the comments over, which were dealt with efficiently, and Sian has made the amendments as outlined in the report, and we're happy all the amendments have been made, Chair.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
I think you're on mute, Chair.
Thank you. In that case, Sian has already mentioned the recommendations which are contained at paragraph 5 of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Mark is proposed, a seconder. Austin, diolch yn fawr. Can you all indicate that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So on to now item number 13, which is the statement of accounts, and I think it's back to David. Diolch yn fawr, David. Sorry, I beg your pardon. No, it's the annual performance assessment. Item 12. Back to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the assessment of North Wales Fire and Rescue Services. Oh, sorry, my camera should have me back now. Apologies. I'll start again. Members, the purpose of this report is to present you the assessment of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority's performance during years 21-22. This is in relation to the progress made towards achieving its long-term improvements and wellbeing objectives, the medium-term equality objectives, and its compliance with applicable Welsh language standards. The authority is required under various pieces of legislation to give a public account and publish its performance, progress and compliance. And these pieces of legislation include the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015, which requires the authority to set and publish objectives. The Local Government Wales Measure 2009, which requires the authority to set and publish improvement objectives and to publish performance information annually. The Equality Act 2010 and the Wales Regulations 2011, which require the authority to produce a strategic equality plan and produce annually on progress. And the Welsh Language Wales Measure 2011, which requires the authority to comply with Welsh language standards and to report annually on its compliance within those standards. So for convenience, reporting against all 4 of the above has been incorporated within a single document, the annual performance assessment, which is included within the pack. And this will be for publication on the authority's website once approved. This year's annual performance assessment opens with the introductory sections which describe the legal requirements for reporting and presents information about the challenges and issues facing Wales in the future, along with information about resources and emergency incidents attended in the areas covered by the authority. The middle section of the assessment report gives a detailed account of the specific actions that the authority took last year to meet its long-term improvement and wellbeing objectives. As in previous reports, more emphasis has been placed on the narrative and case studies that demonstrate the real difference that the authority's work makes to people's lives in North Wales. Progress against each of the authority's 7 improvements and wellbeing objectives are described from page 10 onwards within the report, with some highlights including successful work we've completed with our partners at the British Red Cross, who support people following emergency incidents that we attend, our continued collaborative work with others to prevent and respond effectively to wildfires, and the work of our new recruitment and availability officers to improve retained firefighter recruitment and availability across all 3 areas of the service, and the introduction of new innovative design fire kits, personal protective clothing for our firefighters following a procurement process in partnership with our colleagues in the other fire and rescue services in Wales. From page 38 of the assessment report, it presents detailed information on the authority's compliance with each of the Welsh language standards and the many steps we have taken to promote Welsh language in all that we do. It also includes information on how we have successfully surpassed our bilingual requirements with the numbers of our staff who have Welsh language skills listed and what we intend to do to promote the Welsh language development in the future. From page 45, the assessment report describes our progress during the past year against the 6 20 to 24 equality plan objectives, with highlights including our positive action whole-time firefighter recruitment events, firefighter fitness initiatives available to colleagues and members of our community interested in becoming a firefighter, updates on staff equality, diversity and inclusivity training and development, all to meet the requirements of the Equality Act and importantly create a fully inclusive and welcoming environment in North Wales Fire and Rescue Service in keeping with our core values. The final section of the assessment report includes performance indicator information on the Welsh in a Welsh context and an account of how the authority has met its commitments under the All Wales Dwelling Fires Response Charter. Additional information at the end of the assessment report includes the outcome of the work undertaken by Audit Wales that looks specifically at the authority's approach to corporate resilience. The report found that the authority has demonstrated its short-term resilience, but needs to take some decisions to remain resilient in the future. Those areas are included within the assessment report. So members and chair, it's recommended that you approve the draft assessments of the authority's performance in 21-22, subject to any minor alterations or corrections if required, and note the service's intention to publish a simple summary version of the key elements of this assessment report also. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. And members will have noted that it's a very comprehensive assessment report, and not only does it contain lots of performance data, but in my view, it contains many excellent good practice examples of how the service is making an impact across our communities in North Wales. One thing stood out to me right at the beginning of the report when it says nearly half of the personnel employed by the authority are categorised as on-call firefighters. This is amongst the highest proportion when compared with fire and rescue authorities in England. And we've already touched on this with the sort of the presentation earlier on, that this is a challenge for us as a service going forward, the amount of on-call firefighters and trying to ensure sufficient fire cover. That is, as I say, a challenge that we will have to consider and respond to going forward. Cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Gai ddatgan yn siom i ddechrau bod yr adroddiad yma wedi cael ei gyrru allan yn uniaith Saesneg yn y lle cyntaf ar yr 11 o Fedi. Fe nes i gwyno'n syth a ges i ymddiheuriad, ond dwi ddim yn derbyn bod osa unrhyw adroddiad cael ei gyrru allan i ni yn uniaith Saesneg yn y lle cyntaf, gyda nodyn yn dweud bydd fersiwn Cymraeg i ddilyn ar pen da ni'n gael yn ôl o'r cyfieithu. Os yw'r adroddiad ddim digon da i gyrru allan yn y Gymraeg, ni ddylsai gael ei gyrru allan yn Saesneg chwaith. A fyswn i'n gofyn i'r awdurdod wneud yn siŵr bod polisi hyn ymlaen bod unrhyw adroddiad o'r math yma i gael ei gyrru allan un yn Gymraeg yn unig, neu yn ddwyieithog. Dwi ddim yn meddwl sa'n ni fel siaradwyr Cymraeg gael yn trin yn eilradd. O'na 2 wthnos rhwng cael yr adroddiad yn Saesneg a derbyn yr adroddiad Cymraeg. Wedi dweud hynny, y fras dwi'n meddwl bod yr adroddiad yma i'w chamol am yr faint o waith sydd wedi mynd i fewn iddi a hefyd yn esbonio am berfformiad yr awdurdod. Mynd yn ôl i'r iaith Gymraeg, llongyfarch yn fawr yr hyn sydd yn digwydd, gyfeilliad yma hyrwyddo'r Gymraeg o fewn yr awdurdod. Un peth dwi'n weld ar goll o'r darn yno ydy oes ddim cyfeiriad at sut mae'r awdurdod yn trin aelodau'r awdurdod gyfeilliad yma'r iaith Gymraeg yn y gwestiwn. Oes ddim ffigurau o gwbl ar aelodau'r awdurdod o ran gallu, os oes gefnogaeth efo'r iaith Gymraeg i'r rhai hynny sydd yn dysgu ac yn y blaen. Fyswn ni yn Dwi'n yn gwybod os na rwan ydy'r lle i reid hwnnw i fewn ta wbeth i edrych i fewn ar gyfer y dyfodol ydy'r materion yno felly. Ond mi fyswn ni'n gofyn bod rhywbeth yn digwydd ar hynny ac wrth gwrs mae o'n eir yn ei bod yn sôn am y safonau'r Gymraeg, a maen nhw'n sôn cydymffurfiad, a wedyn byddwn ni ond yn cael yr adroddiad yn uniau Saesneg yn y lle cyntaf. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Gwynfor, dwi'n meddwl pwynt digon teg am cael yr adroddiad dim ond yn Saesneg, ond dwi'n deall bod chi wedi cael esboniad ac ymddiheuriad am hynny. Gyda y pwynt diwetha, o'n i ddim os mae rhywun eisiau ymateb i'w sylw. Dwi'n sbio a wedi Sian neu y chief eisiau dod i fewn y hynny. Sian?
Dwi'n meddwl bod llaw y chief i fyny, ydy?
I can't see the chief's hand being raised. I don't know if the chief wants to come in.
Thank you. Probably just want to say what Sian was about to say. It certainly is not our policy to only issue documents in English, and I could just apologise to the councillor for that. It certainly won't happen again. Although I'd like to congratulate him on a point that we hadn't considered, the fact that our members' development should incorporate Welsh language development, and we'll certainly take that suggestion away and look to enhance that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Rob Triggs.
Oh yeah, just a little thing with Stuart's report. You mentioned recruitment. And this was mentioned in the last meeting I attended. Has there been any improvement in that area? And the other one was, I don't know whether you mentioned it actually, was the training. The last meeting we had, you said the training at station-based level needed improving. I'm just concerned that these two items will have a knock-on effect with broadening the role of the firefighter. Just wonder what work was going on in there. Thank you.
Chair, would you like me to come in? Yeah. So regarding recruitment, Councillor Triggs, do you mean retained duty system firefighters or whole time? It was the whole time firefighter recruitment that I referred to in the report. And you may be aware that we've currently got a whole time recruitment course that's running now, commenced in September. And then we have another 12 new recruits starting from January. The RDS recruitment is an ongoing process which just continues all year round. And the way that we've supported this since the restructure in April is now there are dedicated recruitment and availability officers working across all three areas. So that's yet to be reviewed. It's still early days with those roles, but initial indications are actually that they are being quite successful in some areas of the service already. Does that answer the first question?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Just pick up on the second question regarding the training, the provision of training. So yeah, you're right in what you're saying. I touched on it briefly when I discussed the new training centre project, and the review of operational training into the core skills has almost concluded. New training strategy will commence from April next year, and that will include additional training delivered from the centre. And the next part of the review, which is currently taking place, which kind of dovetails into the Chief Fire and Rescue Advisor's thematic review as well, is to station-based training. So yes, that's also being looked at currently.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rob. Can I have John Brynmore?
Yeah, I spoke to Rob about Councillor Rob about this last week. I have quite a lot of acquaintance with people that have failed in training. Basically, they've just failed the BA, and they get 2 weeks of training, and then they are basically thrown into a smokehouse without any adequate, to me, training to do that. I have a few friends that have failed there, where they haven't worn a BA before. They put a BA on and they're in a smokehouse. Is it possible, because of this, if they are acquainted with BA before they go into a smokehouse, that the failure rate would decrease? Thank you.
Stuart?
Yeah, so just picking up on Councillor Hughes's point there. So breathing apparatus initial course for all new firefighters is 2 weeks in duration. And during the first week, they they're developing all the skills required to work breathing apparatus, but in a cold smoke or a no smoke environment. It's only during the second week that then they'd be asked to then start entering a hot smoke-filled environment. So all the necessary training development does go into breathing apparatus during that initial course. It's also a requirement that all of our firefighters who are operational undertake a breathing apparatus course every 2 years. And part of that course obviously includes an assessment to make sure they're safe to continue to wear BA when they return to station. So there is an assessment element within it, and those that do not pass the assessment are then given a very detailed and planned development plan to make sure that they do get the necessary training to satisfy those areas of development before they're then reassessed and placed back on the run. So all of the development and the support into their development is in place.
Thank you. John, wyt ti'n hapus gyda yr ateb yna?
I've got 2 computers on 2 mouses. Just the one thing that we have retirement that I know we lost 2 fantastic officers here in Abersoch. Basically, that they felt they're too old when they weren't, that they could have been still lead officers, but they weren't adequate. They didn't feel that their age to go into with a BA wasn't approved. But they were the 2 senior officers and they just knew they wouldn't pass a BA, so they retired. And I think that's a shame, losing all that experience when they were still capable officers is a shame.
Yeah, diolch am y sylwad.
Could I just come back on that, Chair?
Certainly, Chief.
Yeah, I think if that was actually the case and they didn't go through their refresher training and were assessed, but actually because of the concern around not passing it, decided to resign, then I'm very disappointed to hear that. I think our new approach to that BA refresh training probably takes some of that fear factor away. And it's certainly something that we've been implementing over the last year, where that people have that support in their reassessment, rather than it be a terrifying pass or fail experience. So, as I say, very disappointed if that was their concern and that they meant that they left us, because we appreciate the experience that they brought.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions or comments? I can't see anybody else raising their hand. So Stuart has already read out the recommendations which are contained at paragraph 4 of the report. Can I have somebody propose that we accept them, please? Mark, thank you. John Bruno, diolch yn fawr. Can you show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. And now we are on to item 13, which is the statement of accounts. And you will have had these papers sent through to you in a separate email. And back to you, David. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Cadeirydd. Dwi'n meddwl bod Helen MacArthur am gyflwyno mewn eiliad ond na i ddeud chydig geiriau rwan yn hytrach na dod fewn wedyn. Dwi'n meddwl bod swn i'n cael diolch yn gyntaf i Helen MacArthur ac yn arbennig hefyd i Helen Howard am y gwaith trylwyr gyda'r cyfrifon yma. Mae hwn fel, sut sa rhywun yn dweud, mae o fel iceberg o ran beth da ni'n weld yn rhywbeth eitha swmpus, ond di o ddim yn dangos 10% o'r gwaith, papurau gwaith sydd i hwn, sy'n cefnu hyn. A dyna ni ddiolchgar. Hefyd diolch i Mike Whiteley a'r tîm archwilio am ei cydweithrediad drwy'r adolygiad ac am ei fwriad o i roi barn diamod ar y cyfrifon. Mae hynny ar tudalen 5 paragraff 9 o adroddiad archwilio Cymru ddoth allan. Ymddiheuriadau bod y papur yma'n hwyr yn cyrraedd chi. Mi o'n o ddipyn o newidiadau. Dwi'n meddwl bod hynny allan anochel oherwydd o hwn y flwyddyn gyntaf i'r holl waith ar y cyfrifon gael ei fewnoli o Cyngor Conwy i'r awdurdod ei hun, a dwi'n meddwl bod o'n dal yn meddwl bod o'n andros o lwyddiant i gael rhain allan yn y siap safon dda ma'n nhw rei. Ac just ar yr argymhellion, yn ogystal â derbyn y dogfennau, ar ddiwedd yr eitem, mi fydd angen i'r awdurdod neu penderfyniad i awdurdod i chi, cadeirydd, i lofnodi'r datganiad terfynol, hynny ar tudalen 3 o'r datganiad ddoth allan, a hefyd cytuno i mi a chi fod yn llofnodi'r llythyr cynrychiolaeth, letter of representation, a mae hwnnw, mae ffurf ar eiriau hwnnw yn tudalen 11 o adroddiad Archwilio Cymru. Dwi'n meddwl bod Helen am gyflwyno chydig ar yr datganiadau, ond wrth gwrs, da chi wedi gweld hyn o blaen, ac dwi'n meddwl bod angen mynd iddyn nhw'n yn fanwl ofnadwy. Diolch, cadeirydd.
Over to you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's always a worry coming after David, because he's probably touched on a few of the things that I was going to. The final of our 4 financial papers today, and they relate to the 2021-22 financial year. I'm not going to go into the statements in huge detail because they were presented to members in June, and at that time we undertook an analysis of the key figures. Since then, they have been with the Audit Wales for the external audit review, and therefore the pack of statements in the pack today, they incorporate adjustments following audit. Normally you would receive these by the end of July, but for the last 2 years, the deadline has been extended to the end of November. So I'm pleased to be able to report that we are within those statutory deadlines. As David's alluded to, I don't think we can underestimate the time and effort that goes into preparing these accounts, and also the effort of auditing. And I would personally like to extend my grateful thanks both to Helen and the finance team within the service, but also to colleagues from Conway in terms of this handover year. I also like to thank the external auditors who face their own staffing challenges during the period of audit. So to support yourselves as members, I'd like to highlight the key audit findings. The draft accounts confirm net expenditure of 37.1 million, and I can confirm that the audited position remains unchanged. Mike Whiteley, the auditor, is with us today, and they're proposing an unqualified opinion. What that means in practically is that the accounts are deemed to provide a true and fair view of the authority's financial position and performance, and also that they've been prepared using the correct accounting standards. Worth noting that we have usable reserves of just over £7 million, and we've discussed at length today some of the challenges we're facing, and anticipate that they will be utilised both this financial year and the next financial year. It's fair to say there have been a number of audit revisions, but these haven't impacted on the revenue position. They largely related to the asset valuations contained in our balance sheet. At the time the draft accounts were prepared, there was a lot of uncertainty around asset valuations, not unique to us, and something that was being discussed across the public sector. Our buildings are not valued in the same way that a commercial building is, and our asset valuations don't reflect the market value. Instead, they're built upon depreciated replacement cost. That means that we estimate the cost of rebuilding our buildings for the purpose that we currently use them for, and then we make an adjustment for the current age and condition. Very, very technical area, and we rely on professional valuers to support us with that. So following the advice of our valuer, we made a number of adjustments which increased the value of our assets. And what that reflected was the additional cost that we would face today of rebuilding them. In addition, there was a further adjustment that was made to correct a classification error. Also worth noting, in the report, I make reference to the pension liabilities of 327 million. And again, another technical area, and this is an actuarial assessment of what our existing liabilities are. It's not an amount that's due today, but it will be something that will come to fruition over very many years. Of particular note are 2 areas. So generally, when the auditors find an issue, we have the discussion, is it material? And if it's not material, are we going to adjust? And there's 2 areas where we're recommending that we don't adjust. So firstly, it was identified during the audit that updated guidance in relation to the value of the training towers was not being consistently applied by our valuer. Our training towers are steel, and the query was whether they're valued as part of the overall asset or whether you value them separately. We're not consistent in this area. It's something that we're going to take forward with our valuer. However, our auditor was satisfied that this wasn't material to the balance sheet. Then the second item related to a payment to Clwyd Pension Fund. Effectively, over a 3-year valuation cycle, we owe them a tranche of funding. And if you take a discount by paying it up front, you receive that discount. We've accounted for it over 3 years to reflect the impact on our management accounts. And again, the auditor has confirmed that this is not a material item. I'm not going to go into the full detail of the audit findings because Mike is with us today, and I would like to invite Mike to provide further update on his work. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Helen. Diolch, David. Helen, if you thought David was stealing your thunder, I feel exactly the same, as both of you have stolen mine, but I shall do my best to take members through the main findings of our report. I think it's important to touch on just how challenging the audit environment has been this year before we get into the detail of the report. As Helen said, the asset valuation issue facing the public sector has taken a lot of everybody's time. There's a lot of late guidance coming out from CIFA, which was not helpful to officers as practitioners in preparing those accounts. I'm just really grateful for officers in working with us on that. It's been challenging due to COVID issues. We're still kind of facing continuing sickness, which is something that sadly can't be avoided. But I just want to express on record my thanks to Helen Howard as well, and the wider team, and also to Graham Williams from Conway Council in terms of their kind of efforts and hard work and cooperation with us and getting to this point. For that, I'm really grateful. As I think David covered in paragraph 9, we are proposing to issue an unqualified audit opinion, subject to the accounts being approved today and as receiving the signed letter of representation. The Auditor General is planning to sign the audit opinion off tomorrow afternoon. So that's the timescale, subject to them being approved today. In paragraph 12 in our report, we set out the uncorrected misstatements, which Helen has just gone through, with the two main issues being the pension deficit single lump sum and the training towers issue. And it's really positive to hear that steps are already being taken to resolve these issues with the valuer going forward. Paragraph 13 in our report, we just signpost there to the corrected misstatements, which are in Appendix 3. And just to clarify, these are the changes between the original draft presented to you in June and the final version now. I think in David's covering report, he indicates that we kind of effectively paused auditing on that first set until the asset valuation change has been put through. But for completeness, we need to report the position between the version you originally saw and the version before you today. In paragraph 15, we just give a little bit more of a background to the asset valuation problems that we're facing in the public sector, and just to highlight there that is the main adjustment in Appendix 3, an increase in the asset values of around 5.4 million. I think the more challenging part of our audit was kind of testing and working through the changes relating to those asset valuation updates. It's a really complex area, and it just took us, as I've outlined there, longer than we'd originally planned. We didn't envisage these when we set the audit plan. And again, just to express my thanks to Helen and Graham in terms of working through those changes with us. Appendix 1 contains the final letter of representation, as has already been highlighted, and just to confirm that in page 11 of our report, the reasons there are outlined as to why the authority has chosen not to make those amendments, which is, as Helen has explained earlier. Appendix 2 contains our proposed audit report. It's proposed at this stage as the Auditor General hasn't yet signed, and obviously we can give that opinion once the authority has approved the accounts this morning. And then just briefly in Appendix 3, outlining the main corrections made from the audit. The big one there up top is the asset valuations, as we've outlined, and there are a number of other kind of minor amendments going through. On page 19, we have the property, plant and equipment note 11. As Helen outlined, there was a review undertaken by Helen Howard when updating the asset valuations, and Helen and the team identified that error. So that's nothing directly arising from our audit, but something that the authority has identified as part of their review, which is really good practice, and has identified that and made that amendment and updated the valuation accordingly. Nothing else I really wanted to flag, thank you, Chair, but happy to take any questions from members, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Are there any questions for either Mike or for Helen or David from members, please? I can't see any hands raised, so in that case, we'll move on to the recommendations, which are contained at paragraph 7. There's 4 recommendations to approve. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Mark. Diolch yn fawr, Gwynfor. Can you show that you approve the recommendations? Diolch yn fawr, and now, because you've approved those recommendations, I confirm that I will sign off the accounts as chair of the authority. Diolch yn fawr, thank you. So going on to the final item on the agenda in part 1, the COVID-19 inquiry preparation. Over to ACO Sian. Well, Mr. Sorfenau, diolch yn fawr, Sian.
Diolch yn fawr. Eitem gwybodaeth ydy hwn, mewn gwirionedd, i'ch hysbysu chi o brosiect sydd wedi cael ei gychwyn tu fewn i'r gwasanaeth. Mwyn cofnodi a chreu rhyw fath o gatalog megis o'r penderfyniadau a sut ddaru ni weithredu yn ystod y pandemig. Mae'n siŵr bod chi'n ymwybodol yn barod bod yr ymchwiliad cyhoeddus wedi cychwyn ar draws y Deyrnas Unedig, sy'n edrych ar pa benderfyniadau gafodd ei gwneud ag ati, a sut ddaru pethau effeithio gwahanol sectorau o'r gymuned. A felly rhyw baratoad ydy hwn. Nid bod neb wedi gofyn i ni roi tystiolaeth, fel rhan o'r ymchwiliad, mae posib gofyn i rywun ymddangos i roi tystiolaeth unai fel unigolyn neu ar ran sefydliad. Dydy hynna ddim wedi digwydd, eto mae'r gwaith yn megis ar ddechrau felly. Ond mae'n arfer da i fod yn barod yn dydy. Rhag ofn i ni gael rhywun yn gofyn i ni roi tystiolaeth, a mae hynny yn gallu bod i aelod o staff sydd yn aelod o staff rwan, neu'n aelod o'r awdurdod rwan, neu oedd ar yr adeg yn ystod y pandemig. Felly, hyd yn oed os di bobl wedi ymddeol, mae'n bosib gael nhw nôl i roi tystiolaeth o dan lw. A felly, rhyw baratoi ar gyfer hynny. Os da ni ddim yn cael yn gwahodd i roi tystiolaeth, mi fydd o'n creu rhyw archif gwerthfawr gobeithio o adeg hanesyddol, a gobeithio na ddim gweld y fath adeg eto, ond mi fydd o yna fel archif. Felly, fel o'n i'n dweud, dim ond i chi wybod bod y gwaith yna wedi cael ei gychwyn. Yr amserlen, mae o'n eitha hyblyg fel amserlen, ond dyn ni'n anelu at gael y rhan fwyaf o'r gwybodaeth yn barod erbyn diwedd y flwyddyn yma a darfod y brosiect yn ei gyfanrwydd erbyn mis Mehefin flwyddyn nesaf. Does na ddim peryg i neb gael i ofyn i roi tystiolaeth cyn hynny, yn ôl amserlen yr ymchwiliad. Mae'r cadeirydd yr ymchwiliad, sef y Baroness Heather Hallett, wedi gosod bob amserlen allan, wedi gosod y cylch gwaith ag ati. Does na ddim byd sydd yn deud fydden ni'n cael unrhyw fath o wahoddiad cyn ha nesa, ond gobeithio fydd bob peth yn barod. Fel o'n i'n deud, cadeirydd, mater eitem gwybodaeth ydy hwn i'r aelodau. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Sian. As they say, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So it's important that we do have these preparations put in place. Are there any comments or questions from any members? No. As Sian has said, the report is just for noting for information. Will you show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. Yeah, everybody happy with that? Thank you. So the final item is a matter under part 2 where we wish to exclude the press and the public. Can I have somebody recommend that we do that, please? Diolch, John. Thank you. Dale, will you all show that you agree that we exclude the press and the public? Thank you very much. I'm just waiting for the recording to stop, because it's showing on my screen that the recording is still on at